As Dillon Gabriel and the Oregon Ducks get ready to open up Big Ten play against UCLA, there's some stories coming out as to why he left Oklahoma last year. We've got all that. Plus, no more night games at Nebraska. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So what did motivate Dillon Gabriel to leave Oklahoma and join Oregon? Plus, no more Friday night lights for Nebraska, apparently. And we'll have our Big Ten Classics in live action heading into the weekend. But first, Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel, very exciting player to watch, a lot of fun to watch. And he says he is where he needs to be right now. And that's as the starting quarterback for the Ducks. So why state that? Well, seems kind of obvious, right? When, if you're not a diehard Ducks fan, you might not recall or even remember or even know that Gabriel transferred in from Oklahoma last year. And the Sooners are in the middle of a quarterback disaster right now as they begin play in the SEC. When Gabriel was with the Sooners for the last 2 years, he completed 66% of his passes for 6,600 yards and threw for 55 touchdowns and only 12 interceptions. Not a bad 2-year stint. Not at all. This year at Oregon, he's even better statistically, completing 84% of his passes for a Ducks team that is ranked 8th in the country. Seems like he made a good move. But it's hard for Oklahoma fans to square up the fact that Gabriel left Norman and headed west to Eugene to play for Dan Lanning and the Ducks, and now watch what is going on with the Sooners quarterback situation. Oklahoma coach Brent Venables, he got a hot mess on his hands. Gabriel's backup last year, Jackson Arnold, is no Dillon Gabriel. He's already been benched and replaced by freshman Michael Hawkins Jr. The Tulsa World reported this week that Oklahoma could have kept Gabriel, but Venables decided to move on in favor of Jackson Arnold. If that's how it went down, then that would have been a grave mistake on Venables' part. Venables says that Gabriel informed him after the 2023 season that he would opt to skip out on the Alamo Bowl and that he was going to transfer to another school and not enter the NFL draft. Well, according to Venables, he was surprised. First of all, he was disappointed that he wasn't going to play in the bowl game, but he said he was surprised that Gabriel was not going right into the NFL draft. He said he didn't even know that he had to fight this fight to keep him, that he was going to keep going on with his college football career. He just assumed it was over. That's weird that maybe they weren't on the same wavelength at that point of the season. Like Venables had no idea. Gabriel maybe did. I was under the impression that quarterbacks and head coaches talked all the time. Maybe not the case there at Oklahoma. Venables is more of a head coach / defensive specialist. And Jeff Lebby was the offensive coordinator there that apparently Dillon Gabriel was pretty close to it. So we'll talk about that more in a second. But so Venables talks about how, he was kind of surprised. All right, he's not playing the bowl game and he's transferring out of here. Didn't know he wasn't going to the NFL. Gabriel's response was, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach Jeff Lebby is leaving. That was a big factor. He, of course, went on to take the Mississippi State head coaching job. And Gabriel also said that he wanted to play closer to home. Get to that in a second. Venables says that he and Gabriel left on good terms. And he said, you can't make a guy stay if you don't want to stay. And that was it. I don't know how hard he fought to keep him. I don't know. Seems to be a missing part of that story. Regarding Gabriel wanting to play closer to home, he's from Hawaii. Yes, Oregon is further west than Oklahoma, but it's still a 6-hour flight to Hawaii. So I'm not sure how much closer that is. And maybe he was close to Levy, but he wasn't close enough to follow him to Mississippi State. They're not in the greatest shape. Maybe he wanted to make sure he was playing for a winner here in his final year of college. Maybe Venables didn't fight that hard to keep him, or maybe promises were made to Jackson Arnold. There's a few missing pieces of the story. They don't quite really add up. Meanwhile, Gabriel, he's looking to inflate his NFL stock. He noticed what happened to Bo Nix. Bo Nix literally transformed his career. He was somewhat underwhelming at Auburn. Then he goes to Oregon and he becomes a Heisman finalist and flourished under Dan Lanning and became a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And now he's starting for the Denver Broncos. So with Nix's departure, Gabriel jumped on that job opening and ended up with the Ducks and seems very happy there, as a matter of fact. Now, the Ducks are coming off, they're 3-0, coming off the bye week. And they're going to head into the Rose Bowl versus a 1-2 UCLA team in their Big Ten opener for the Ducks anyway. UCLA's already had a Big Ten game. And then ironic how the Big Ten opener for Oregon is a former Pac-12 foe in UCLA. Kickoff is at 11 p.m. Eastern. It is 8 o'clock Pacific on Fox. Meanwhile, Oklahoma, on the other hand, they're coming off a loss to Tennessee, and they got a date at Bo Nix's old stomping grounds at Auburn. They're having their own quarterback issues, by the way. And then they have to face number 1 Texas in the Red River rivalry. They still have games against Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. That's a tough slate for Oklahoma. Welcome to the SEC, right? I'm absolutely convinced that Brent Venables wishes that he had talked Dillon Gabriel into staying another year at Oklahoma. I mean, why not? Very good great quarterback. Seems like a great kid. Somebody you want to keep around. So that was a mistake on his part, and not at least trying to make another effort to get him to stay there. I'm also convinced that Gabriel hasn't given Norman, Oklahoma another thought as he gets ready for the rest of his college career with Dan Lanning in Oregon in the Big Ten. No question in my mind. He's looking forward and ready to go, and everything dialed in at Oregon. Yeah. So, by the way, the Big Ten teams are the new Big Ten teams from the Pac-12 haven't fared that well in their season openers for their conference portion of their schedule. Indiana embarrassed UCLA in the Rose Bowl. USC gave their game away to Michigan in the Big House. However, Washington did beat Northwestern. So we'll see how the Ducks do against UCLA on Saturday. And it'll be a late one if you're on the East Coast. Don't forget, we're going to have a late one too. We go live on Saturdays on our Locked On Big Ten YouTube channel. And we'll go live immediately after the Illinois-Penn State game. That's the NBC Big Ten Saturday night game. And kickoff there is 7:30 Eastern. So we think we'll be on around 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific-ish, give or take. I'll have immediate reaction to the Illinois-Penn State game as well as all the other action throughout the day around the Big Ten. Plus, your live comments as well are great on all that. So keep those coming. And again, that should be around 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. All right. In the meantime, if you are new to us or if you've been around and you haven't done it yet, would love to ask you to subscribe. You just click the subscribe button and that's it. It's free. No other information ever required from you again. And we're on the Big Ten bandwagon together here every single day. So subscribe and then share with a friend. Word of mouth is great. Subscribe, share, like, and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So what's the deal in Nebraska? No more Friday night games? I thought we had an awesome game last Friday, even though it was a loss for the Huskers in overtime. Tough one to take. But nevertheless, I want to dive into that a little bit next here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel makes games better. Games are already exciting, and you can make them more exciting with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans, you start the season here. It's already underway, so let's get going. And get a big return on FanDuel. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and much more all on the same page where you place your bets. All right there on your fingertips. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. What a great deal. It's all at FanDuel.com. So check that out. By the way, tonight, Thursday Night Football, Cowboys on the road at the Giants. I believe that line is now 5.5. It was 4.5. Cowboys favored. The bigger that number goes, the more I'm jumping on the Giants. Cowboys are a mess right now. And I'll take the over at 44.5. Baseball, Tigers trying to clinch things up against the Rays. I think they win. Twins also win over the Marlins. I like the under on the run total for the Padres and Dodgers. Expect more of a pitching battle there. That's all at FanDuel. Do it right there. FanDuel.com. Want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget, we have a website, talkbig10.com. It's the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there. And while you're there, you can buy merchandise from your favorite school. Get some football shirts or pennants or hats right there at talkbig10.com. All right, so one of my favorite games to watch so far this year was last weekend on Friday night, the overtime thriller at Lincoln, Nebraska, as the Fighting Illini pulled out the road win in overtime in front of the Huskers' 400th consecutive sellout. It was a great atmosphere under the lights, national TV. It was electric. So it was to my great surprise when I found out that new Huskers athletic director, Troy Dannon, penned a letter to Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, and he said, hey, we here at Nebraska no longer wish to host Friday night games other than our traditional Black Friday game every other year that we host with Iowa after the day after Thanksgiving. Well, what's going on? He talked about what a hassle it was they had to cancel Friday in-person classes to allow the students to get ready for the game, deal with day-long onslaught of Husker fans onto the campus area by the stadium, and it's all too much to handle. We presume that the way this was worded, that Nebraska would still accept road games on Friday night. After all, there is a lucrative Friday night Fox TV package that they have to honor. He also doesn't think it's fair that some schools have put their foot down and said that they won't play on Friday night at all. Some schools is Michigan. It's Michigan. And to some extent, Ohio State and Penn State. Michigan has never in its history played on Friday night, ever. And they're not going to start now. Michigan generally doesn't like to play night games, period, Friday or Saturday. I think they have a maximum. They allow for 2 night games on Saturdays at home. That's it. Got to be day games. Athletic Director Ward Manuel says that the Wolverines have fans that drive in from all over Michigan. Michigan's a big state, and then including fans in the Upper Peninsula, and they don't have to spend a second night for a hotel and go back the next day or drive back late after a night game. So, and plus Michigan has always felt strongly about reserving Friday nights for high school. That's where the attention belongs, on the kids for high school football Friday nights. So Michigan has never played on Friday night. We'll see. And Nebraska's going, hey, how come they get to do it? Well, it's because they're Michigan, I guess, right? Meanwhile, we have a Friday night game tomorrow here in the Big Ten, as Washington makes their longest trip of the year. Got to travel across the country to Piscataway, New Jersey, and take on Rutgers. Speaking of Michigan a minute ago, we got an update on cornerback Will Johnson, who mysteriously left the USC game after getting a game-changing pick 6 interception where he scored. It really, Michigan was on the ropes at that point if it wasn't for that interception. But shortly thereafter, CBS reported they saw him leaving and darting into the x-ray room underneath the stadium. And, Sherrone Moore isn't quick to give out a lot of information. So we went a few days without really knowing what was going on. Although Johnson met with the media here this week as well. He said he had a bad shoulder. He wanted to get it checked out. Sherrone Moore said on Monday, if they really needed him to come back into the game, He would have been able to. They decided for precautionary reasons to hold him out, which I thought was weird because they needed him at the end of the game. That was a nail biter down to the stretch. I don't know. I don't know who's telling the full truth. Nothing but the truth. Johnson said he's feeling a lot better, and the fact that Michigan brought him out to meet the press and talk probably means he's going to play. They got a game against Minnesota on Saturday at noon. And speaking of game times, in case you missed it this week, the Ohio State Buckeyes, their Big Ten opener is against Michigan State. They got a new kickoff time, just changed in the middle of the week. It's crazy. Game time was slated to begin at 7 o'clock Eastern. It's now 7:30 Eastern as it streams on Peacock. So again, if you're in the East Lansing area, you're going to go to that game. It's going to be a half hour later than you thought originally, from 7 until 7:30. All right. Speaking of games and game times, what we like to do, if you're new to this podcast, we always have features that we like to highlight in our final segment. So this is coming up. On Mondays, we take my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend, see if they match your list. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets. Follow us on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. Wednesdays, we power rank the teams in the standings the way we see it. And Thursdays, we like to look at the Big Ten Network, even though we're not affiliated with them. We have the same interests. So we're going to look and pull out some of the Big Ten classics and when they're airing, in case you'd like to enjoy that. They like to take games that are on the schedule for this weekend and then go back and find prior matchups in Rose Bowls or whatever the case is, bowl games, big games during the season, rivalry games, all that, and replay them. Always love it. And then we'll give you the list of what is actually going to be on live, who's getting the live Big Ten Network broadcast this weekend. We'll do that. And then, by the way, Fridays, we do pigskin picks. So that's all good. It's all coming up right here. Don't go anywhere. 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. PrizePicks. This is fun. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. They got room for more. 5 million and one. Join them. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. Pick some players. There'll be some stats next to their names. You think more than or less than on those stats, group them up. The more players you get right together in a group, the more your winnings are. It's fantastic. The PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks, your picks are still live on. It's great. It's fantastic. Plus, with PrizePicks, you get your money within 15 minutes if you win. It is fantastic. So, a lot of examples, a lot of stats. You can say like Tyreek Hill, you think he's going to have more than 90 receiving yards, or Dak Prescott less than 300 passing yards. And you put it all together, group your favorite players together. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONCollege on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up this weekend with the Big Ten Network, with Big Ten Classics and Big Ten Live action. I'm going to put it on full screen. If you're audio only, we'll describe it in detail for you, and we'll take a look. Here we go. All right, we're going to pick it up with Friday, September 27th. All times are Eastern, and we don't put everything on here. We just picked out some highlights, some things we think that you would be interested in. 4 o'clock Eastern. It is a Michigan State football classic. It is the 2013 Big Ten Championship. And of course, it's Ohio State and Michigan State are playing each other this weekend. That's what I was talking about earlier. So the 2013 game between Ohio State and Michigan State from December of 2013. This is where Jeremy Langford rushed for 128 yards and a touchdown, and Connor Cook's 304 passing yards and 3 touchdowns led the Spartans to a Big Ten title over Ohio State. At 6 o'clock, we have a Minnesota football classic. Minnesota at Michigan. This is from October of 2005. Jason Giannicki kicked a 30-yard field goal with 1 second remaining to push the Gophers past the 21st ranked Wolverines 23-20 at the Big House. You remember that one? Well, they're going to show it again this weekend. 7 o'clock Eastern time. We've got an Ohio State football classic, Ohio State at Michigan State from November of 2014. This is JT Barrett. 5 total touchdowns. Helped the 14th ranked Ohio State Buckeyes upset the 8th ranked Michigan State Spartans under the lights in East Lansing. Great game. Check that out. And then some live action on Friday night. Big Ten women's volleyball, UCLA at Nebraska, and Big Ten women's volleyball at 10 o'clock. Ohio State at USC. So check that out. That is all on Friday. Meanwhile, on Saturday, here's how the day shapes up on the Big Ten Network. At 10 a.m., they got their Big Ten tailgate show. They're doing it from Bloomington, Indiana, home of the Indiana Hoosiers, getting you ready for all of the day. They got a lot of features and special guests and analysts. Then at 11:30, they have their Big Ten countdown to kick off. And that leads you right into their first game of the day, Maryland and Indiana. Big Ten football. This is Indiana's first Big Ten conference game. Indiana 4-0. Both these teams like to score some points. Maryland has a nice offense. Indiana's putting up 50 points a game. I believe Indiana's a touchdown favorite in this game right now. We'll check that out tomorrow in detail with our pigskin picks in this final segment tomorrow in tomorrow's podcast. At 4 o'clock, we got some Big Ten men's soccer, Michigan at Rutgers. And at 6:30 Eastern, Big Ten women's volleyball, Purdue at Minnesota, and then Big Ten women's volleyball at 8:30 with Indiana at Oregon. So a rare day of just sometimes the Big Ten Network has double headers or triple headers for football, just the one football game, Maryland at Indiana. So all the networks fight over the Big Ten. Then on Sunday, they got Big Ten football at 60. I've described this to you before. It's snap by snap, edited highlight, play after play, highlight after highlight. Just and they get all the stuff in between the snaps. They edit it out. You can catch up on a game in 60 minutes. They got them scheduled throughout the day. As of this taping, they have not announced which games will be when, but I know that starting at noon and moving on, they'll have them throughout the day of the various Big Ten games. And then at 5 o'clock, got Big Ten women's volleyball with Rutgers taking on Michigan. So a lot of stuff to keep track of here this weekend. You can enjoy it all there on the Big Ten Network. All right, tomorrow, we're going to look at all the games, all the teams in action. That's what we do on Fridays. We just run right through it. We've got the whiteout energy at Penn State against Illinois. We got the brown jug, all things up for grabs. We got conference games. It's going to be very exciting. So we'll run them down for you. And then don't forget, once again, we'll be live on Saturday after that Illinois-Penn State game on YouTube here on our Locked On Big Ten channel. Many ways for you to interact with me in the meantime. Would love to hear from you at Twitter, at Talk Big Ten. Also on YouTube, get it going back and forth in the comment section between rivals. We love that. And don't forget, we have our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. This podcast will go there as soon as we're done. All of our podcasts go there chronologically, and we group them by schools. And while you're there checking out a podcast about your favorite team, pick up some merchandise for yourself. Go and buy yourself a team shirt, a football hat from your favorite school. It's all right there at talkbig10.com. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe. It's free. No personal information required. It's just a click of a button, and that's it forever. Subscribe. And then if you don't mind sharing with a friend, a little crooked share arrow, send it to somebody that you know would like to listen to Big Ten talk every day. Maybe they're an alum, family member, a friend who likes the Big Ten. So subscribe, share, follow, and like this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it comes available each and every day. And if you go back to the website and check out a few more of our podcasts, get caught up on what we did this week, also inviting you for a second listen for our colleagues at Locked On College Football. They're there every day as well. All things college football available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it. Tomorrow, a Friday show going into another weekend, week 5 of college football, Big Ten action. Can't wait. Hopefully you'll join us then as well. Thank you for your time today. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.